Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of the Council of the Township of Springwater. And could I have a mover and a seconder to open this meeting? Hannah and McConkey. That the regular meeting of the Council of the Township of Springwater of September 20th, 2017 come to order at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? Carried. Now I'd ask you to stand if you're able for the national anthem, and then remain standing for a second after we're finished singing the national anthem, and be led by Councillor Austin.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Please remain standing for a moment of private contemplation or prayer, and let's remember all the victims of the recent natural disasters, the 2 hurricanes and the earthquake in Mexico, and let's pray for the people that have become victims of those natural disasters. Thank you. Please be seated. And I'll turn to council to see if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest in any of the matters that are on tonight's agenda. Okay, seeing none. We do have some delegations and deputations tonight. And first of all, I'd like to invite, and I'll meet you over there, Enbridge Gas and our fire services and the fire marshal's office for a quick presentation. And I'll turn it over for words from the fire marshal's office, and they can certainly clarify why we're here tonight and the great kind of contributions that Enbridge Gas and them are presenting tonight to the Township of Springwater. John?
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Mayor Bill French, Fire Chief Ian Gavette, and members of the Fire Service. I am pleased to be here today on behalf of the Fire Marshal's Public Fire Safety Council and Enbridge Gas Distribution and Springwater Fire and Emergency Services for Project Zero. The role of the council is to develop partnerships between members of the fire safety community and the general public. Project Zero is a strong example of these partnerships at work. The objective of this campaign is simple: to deliver combination smoke and carbon monoxide alarms to high-risk areas of Ontario communities, so that the deadly carbon monoxide or smoke is detected, residents will have early warning they need to safely escape. Smoke and carbon monoxide alarms are critical life safety devices for everyone. Springwater Fire and Emergency Services is receiving 186 alarms valued at over $11,000. Since the launch of the campaign in 2009, Enbridge has contributed over $800,000 to Project Zero, resulting in the distribution of more than 27,000 alarms in 85 Ontario communities. I'd like to thank Enbridge Gas Distribution for its long-term support and commitment to this important initiative. I would like to also congratulate Mayor Bill French, Fire Chief Ian Gavette, and Springwater Fire and Emergency Services for launching this campaign in their community to help keep residents safe in their homes. Thank you for your time today and for demonstrating your commitment to making this province a safer place to live.
Well, thank you, and thank you, Enbridge Gas, for this wonderful donation. And Ian, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to thank the two sponsors of this campaign. We have an incredibly competent firefighting force that assists our Fire Prevention Officer, Jeff Corvo, in delivering many life safety programs throughout the community. And I would like to thank them for actually being out this evening, which is a coincidence, but shows their commitment to this vital project, so that with luck, we'll have no fire or CO-related deaths in the community. Thank you both.
So thank you and congratulations. So can I have a mover and a seconder to accept that delegation we just had? Deputy Mayor Allen, Councillor Ritchie. That the delegation from Enbridge Gas Distribution and the Fire Marshal's Office be received. All those in favor? Carried. Did you have a question,
Yes, I did.
please?
Okay. Thank you, Mayor French, for you to, he's gone. I was going to ask, the fire marshal indicated or said that there were 186 alarms going to high-risk areas, and I was going to ask if we might have an idea where those high-risk areas are. So,
Well, CAO Brindley will pick up the answer to that question.
thank you.
Thank you, Mayor French, and through to Councillor Austin. A lot of this program is focused on our aged community. So when we actually go out there and inspect homes, we don't like to leave a home that doesn't have a working alarm without a working alarm. So often we will focus those on homes for the elderly who have a challenge to go out and actually get their own alarm. So most of that focus is on those who actually, and it might not be elderly, those who might have a physical disability. It actually, they have a problem getting out, so we actually bring the alarms to them.
Thank you.
Good. Any other questions on that? All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. And we have a delegation here now from Jordan and Sarah McDonald, Re-Team Canada Dance. Please come forward. Just take a chair there and pull those mics together so we can hear you. And please introduce yourself for the audience, because we do live stream these meetings and somebody may want to know who that was speaking.
Good evening, Your Worship, Council, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kevin McDonald. I'm a resident of Springwater Township. I'm here today to introduce you to both of my talented daughters, Sarah on this side and Jordan on this side, and extend my gratitude to the Mayor and Council for their generous support of my girls with the International Competition Grant. This spring, Jordan and Sarah auditioned for the Canadian National Dance Team and were thrilled to be chosen to represent Canada at the official International Dance Organization's World Tap Championships to be held in Race, Germany this November. The International Dance Organization is a world dance and dance sport federation with a membership of over 90 nations representing more than 250,000 dancers from 6 continents. The best dancers from around the world will be competing at the World Championship titles. They have a strong love and commitment for dance and have dedicated countless hours to training to become the best athletes they can be. They've worked tirelessly to perfect their technique and performance in order to be able to compete on the world stage. I would like to turn it over to Sarah now so she can give you some of her background and her goals for this competition. It's okay.
Good evening, my name is Sarah McDonald. I am 13 years old and have been dancing since I was 3. I started dancing competitively at Extreme Dance Connection in Barrie under studio director Jennifer McNeil Partland. I was 5 years old. I compete in several different disciplines including jazz, acro, lyrical, hip-hop, musical theater, ballet, and tap. I especially enjoy tap and was very excited to audition for the opportunity to represent Canada on the international stage. The World Tap Championships is set in an Olympic-style format with the top teams receiving gold and silver and bronze medals. Our team is currently finalizing and polishing our routines and will be practicing very hard every weekend until we leave for the competition in November. We will be working closely with Team Canada director Bonnie Dwyer and the main choreographer Matthew Clark in order to be in competition shape for November. Our goal is to represent Canada and do the best of our abilities, have fun, and bring home a medal.
So, good evening. My name's Jordan McDonald. I'm 16 years old and I've been dancing competitively since the age of 8. I'm very excited to have the opportunity to represent Canada in the township of Springwater as a member of Team Canada. The mandate of the Canadian Dance Organization is to offer elite dancers of Canada an opportunity to represent their country at the official World Dance Championships. The format is Olympic style with the podium, flag raising, and national anthem. The organization gives dancers the opportunity to travel, meet other dancers worldwide, and dance together as a team with other dancers from across Canada. The Canadian Dance Organization also gives Canadian dancers the opportunity to train and be educated with master dancers and teachers worldwide. We've been very fortunate to have many generous supporters that have helped us raise funds so we will be able to participate at the World Dance Championships. We would like to say thank you to the entire council for creating this grant program and offering its support to Sarah and I. A special thanks to Councillor Jack Hanna for recommending us to the grant program. We hope to take many pictures and videos of the event and would hope to return upon our return to Canada and experience some pictures with you guys and hopefully show off our gold medals. Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, just sit there in case there's some questions from council. I will turn to Councillor Hanna.
Thank you, Mayor French. Ladies, it's a great honor for you, but I think it's also an honor for the residents of Springwater to have such great representatives. So good luck, and it would be nice if I don't go on Facebook, but if there's ever any video or something out there that would show what a great job you're doing, I wouldn't mind seeing it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Austin?
Yes, I'm curious as to, you say you're going to be practicing every weekend. Where will those practices be taking place?
Mostly Cambridge.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I would like to make a suggestion that we give them Springwater baseball caps to wear while they're overseas.
That's a very good suggestion.
I think there's somebody at the back who might be handling that. Wonderful.
Any other questions? Yeah, and it's my understanding that when you do come back, you're going to come and tell us the results, or whatever they are, and we look forward to that, because that's one of the things we have said to groups. You know, we don't mind parting with some funding from time to time, but we'd like to see what the results are, and just the experience is probably the most important thing, but you're definitely invited back when the competition is complete. CEO Brindley.
Yes, thank you. Through the mayor, I don't want to interfere with any of the Canada team apparel that you're going to wear, but if you need like the hats or even pins, because sometimes you do exchanges or things like that, so just follow up with us before you go and we can set you up with some things to take away with you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, well, thank you. Can I have a mover and a seconder to accept the delegation? Councillor Hanna, Councillor McConkey. That the delegation from Jordan and Sarah McDonald and their dad Kevin be received. All those in favor? Carried. And now we have a delegation from, on my list, this is Brad McLearning regarding the Hillsdale cleaning, sorry. I mixed up the letters. So Brad, please come forward. And name and address for the clerk, please.
Okay, sounds good. Good evening. My name is Brad McLeaming. I'm a resident in Hillsdale, in Springwater, 17 Marlowe Circle. Good evening, Your Worship, Deputy Mayor, councillors. Thank you very much for having me here. I just want to preface my quick presentation here on the Hillsdale Crosswalk with it's been a long haul to get this crosswalk, so thank you very much for all of council's support. There's a gentleman, Graham McDonald, I'm sure a number of you are familiar with him. He was a big advocate for getting this crosswalk. And Lynn Wright is in the audience here, and she's our crossing guard, and we really appreciate all the hard work she does on behalf of our children. The conversation I want to have tonight, though, is about the crosswalk and the crosswalk lights specifically. And I'll see if this works. There we go. The concerns, even though we are very grateful for having this crosswalk and the associated lights and signage, are a couple of issues. The lights are obstructed by pre-existing road signs as you approach the crosswalk, and this is located on Highway 93 in Hillsdale as you're coming through very, very busy thoroughfare, hence the reason for the crosswalk. The lights are small and non-attention getting. They are not red or amber. They're just basically a white light that flashes, but it can be hard to see. The sun makes it very difficult to see them from both directions. You have the sun in the east coming up, which I'll show you in a second. And if you're approaching from one direction, you have the sun in your eyes. If you're the other direction, there's a glare. The lights are located on the sides of the road and are not immediately obvious to drivers as they approach the intersection. Their purpose initially appears to be for pedestrians, like the hand signal lights in larger towns and cities. And safety, both during school hours and outside of them, is paramount, of course, for our community, as we would all wish. So we're very close to getting this done right, but thank you very much for the efforts to date, and I'll just continue on with my presentation here. So for those of you that haven't seen the new crosswalk, there it is up on the board up there with our awesome crossing guard. The current location of the flashing lights is not easily distinguishable for drivers. I should have made a bigger photo of it, but they're located currently on the actual new lamp posts, those metal posts that are on the side. And as you can see, it's not as obvious maybe in that picture, but it's not obvious to a driver approaching the intersection without Miss Wright out there that it would be a requirement to stop if somebody was crossing that crosswalk. And they're also obscured by a number of signs and poles that I'll show you here in a second. Even though I don't officially represent any sort of body here tonight, I have had a lot of support in just saying that other parents in the village have noticed and that vehicles have gone right through the intersection when the crossing guard isn't there and haven't stopped. And I wouldn't think it would be because they're trying to do anything nefarious. It's just that they didn't notice the lights when they were on, because it could be a challenge to see. And Lynn Wright, of course, our crossing guard, is still definitely the most effective tool that we have for the crosswalk. So we're very grateful for that. So here are the lights right now. I just took quick snapshots of them. They're small lights under the signs on those new metal posts that were installed. As you can see, they're quite a distance from the road itself. You can see that in the left picture. So to any driver approaching the intersection, you can see where that truck is approaching. That's not going to be very obvious as you approach, even though they do flash. Again, the glare of the sun and everything else and all the other commotion makes it very difficult to understand as a driver what is actually supposed to happen at that intersection. Here's a picture coming from the north. Okay, so you're heading towards Barrie in this picture as you hit the crosswalk. The flashing lights are not visible. They are on in that picture, but due to the location of the street signs, there's a number of street signs that are in the way. And again, the sun, I tried to catch it when the sun was in the driver's eyes. Drivers don't see the lights until the very last second, and only if they look at the sides of the road. Large hanging lights out over the road would definitely be, if you can't tell, the solution that I think would be the best for this situation. This is looking from to the north, heading towards Midland. The clutter of signs, again, on the driver's side, blocks the view of lights. As you can see, all the signs, and I'm assuming that's MTO territory. But there's a number of signs and poles that do block the view. If you do see them, you can't see it till literally you're a few feet away from the actual intersection, which could be very difficult for stopping as a driver. The sun from the east, of course, produces a glare off the lights, making them harder to see. Again, hanging lights, if we had them hanging out over the road, would definitely eliminate many of these issues that I'm presenting to you tonight. So I just came up with some possible solutions here. Eliminate any unnecessary road signs that would block the driver's views from the intersection or crosswalk. That would be certainly a bonus. The second thing would be to install more prominent hanging lights from the pole arms that are already hanging over the road. Currently, they're just black and white signs hanging there. This is not our crosswalk. I just threw that up. That's just an image, but that it would be great if we could get something like that. If something could be installed, like flashing warning signs ahead of the intersection with lights warning drivers about the upcoming crosswalk, that would also be a bonus. But again, I'm sure there's a lot of hurdles that are involved as far as the MTO and things like that. Just in conclusion, I just want to say when the crossing guard is there, when the crossing guard is not there, a child is going to push that button and trust that it's safe to cross the highway because he or she thinks that the vehicles see those lights and will stop them. Let's not wait, please, for a scenario like this to happen. If there's anything council could do, it'd be appreciated from Hillsdale. Thank you.
Thank you. And actually, before I turn to council, Heather, do you want to make some preliminary comments? Because I think you mentioned one thing that's very true. This is a Ministry of Transport responsibility, and it was a combination of us lobbying at a number of delegations over a couple of years, plus a resident in communication with Jim Wilson, the MPP.
Right, okay.
And he should be directly involved with this. As a matter of fact, one of the things to recommend immediately, so you can say thank you for putting them in, but we have these issues, and that shouldn't end, because that's who we communicate through and the ministry. But to start with, I'll ask our Director of Public Works, Heather Coleman, to comment.
Thank you, Mayor French. Yeah, I would agree with you. I went through there the other morning, and it was less than impressive to actually see it light up. I have made notes after, I'm not sure if it was originally you that called Mayor French, but there was another comment through to him. I reached out to the MTO inquiring about the color of lights. In addition, I've made notes to what you said about moving some of the road signs, adding some overhead lights and a possibility of some sort of pedestrian crossing ahead warning. I will reach out to the MTO again and express your comments, and with any luck, they'll come and look and make some changes.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Questions of council? Councillor Austin?
Thank you, Mayor France. Through you to the Director of Public Works. I'm just curious as to the nature of this crosswalk, because we have one similar. We have a crosswalk in Elmville by St. John's United Church, but it has, they're red, green, and amber lights. When you push the button, it actually has red lights that stop traffic. And I'm trying to figure out why that's kind of crosswalk, which
That
is
would be incredible. My
much more
gut tells me
effective.
there's probably a hurdle with the MTO on that
Yeah.
one, but that would be amazing if that
now,
could happen.
I would assume that, on Yonge Street in Elmville, it's the jurisdiction of the township, right? So, but I'm just curious why the MTO didn't go that route as opposed to this one, because, you've got
It's a busy highway.
busy
yeah,
highway there
yeah.
first thing in the morning.
Yeah, very, very,
CEO Brindley?
Thank you, Mayor French, and I'll first start by saying, I thank you for your positive approach here, because as much as the execution is questionable, the amount of work just to get this done
I'm sure.
was huge.
I'm sure.
As saying, the mayor and I, and the mayor has delegated to the Ministry of Transportation a number of times. They are doing everything. Well, first of all, this is the first one of its kind in Ontario, just so you know. Wow. So maybe this is just a pilot, and they're trying to get it. I'm hoping they're trying to get it right. Yeah. They are doing everything they can to do a formal pedestrian crosswalk. This is a pedestrian crossing, like they are So this is where the edge of the blade is, sort of like they are doing everything they can to avoid it for some reason. That said, we are still advocating for the changes, because as soon as it was installed, I went out there and had the same concerns as you did. I was surprised of the clear lights versus like an amber, or a number of subtle changes that could have been made to make it more effective. I want to be clear, is from the municipal standpoint, this is not a substitution for our crossing guard. It's to hopefully help the crossing guard and bring additional attention, because I don't doubt our crossing guard has herself fended away a couple trucks once in a while with her stop sign, because it is a challenging.
She's still the
area.
most effective tool,
Yeah.
by far.
But the comments are well taken, and we're at it to try to get them to change this, because I know that other municipalities in Simcoe County alone are trying to not necessarily get this derivative of this change, but Warnica, and there's a few other schools that are trying to do the same, have the same challenges we do. So I'm hoping this is their pilot, and that they'll be amending it to make it more effective.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Coghlan?
Thank you, Mayor French. The drawings that were presented to council a long time ago, when the idea of overhead lights, and to be very honest, when I saw that, I just figured they weren't finished yet, because the arms were across.
And that's
I
what
was
we thought too,
just
yeah.
waiting for the lights to come in. So I remember there being, it was called an overhead crosswalk. So I'm just curious as to when and how the change got made, and because I think the drawings that we saw was an overhead crosswalk.
CEO Brindley?
I will review the drawings again to see if there is a big difference between the two. I just don't have them at my fingertips, but I'll look at those two. But as mentioned by our Director of Public Works as well, we plan on meeting with MTO and trying to take this to this next level to make it better.
Councillor Ritchie?
Thank you, Mayor French. And Brad, thanks so much for coming. Excellent presentation. I was there, I guess, the second day of school, and there was a ministry spokesperson there with a dash cam. He gave me his card, and I would be more than glad to forward that information on to Director of Public Works, and I think he'd be the go-to guy to talk to. He might have given you a card as well, too, but I've got his card there at my office, and he was concerned about it as well, too, and he's the rep for this area. So maybe he can help bring the changes that we're looking for. So I'll get them to you tomorrow, and you can follow up, or I can follow up, doesn't matter. But I know exactly what you're saying. Like, you know, just watching your presentation there, like, you drive up to a railway crossing, all those lights are red.
Yeah.
So maybe they need to be changed. You're right, because of that sunlight, because you're driving either north or south, and you got that east glare. So either a red or an amber or whatever. And yes, like Councillor Austin said, the perfect thing would be stoplights where you got to stop.
Right.
But it's that flow of traffic, and let's face it, 93 is a busy road, but it doesn't matter. The safety of the people come first.
Right.
So thank you again. So we'll look into that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to do a couple things here, just so you know, if you want to hang around for a little bit. Sure. Is there any other questions, first of all, or comments? Okay, we're going to receive your delegation, and then we do have a notice of motion, and we'll deal with it immediately after a question period. We have a maximum 10 minutes.
That's
so
fine.
Please hang around. But right now, we will accept your delegation, just so you know how we
Thank
do
you.
it. And then we are going to deal with it from a business perspective right after the question period, and I'll bring that forward at that time. So I need a mover and a seconder to accept the delegation. Okay, Ritchie and Austin. That the delegation from Brad McCleaming be received. All those in favor? Carried. And I will turn to council, then, and there is a consensus, we can move this forward, there's no issue moving that. Getting head nods, that's fine. Okay, so if you just want to hang around, right now I'll open up question period. Again, everybody knows we have 10 minutes for anybody in the audience that may have a question of an item that's on the council agenda preferably, and any other questions we will commit to get back to you. And so the floor is open for any questions if there are any. Okay. Okay, so the question period was very quick tonight. So what we will do is we will move item, what number was it? 13.3 up. And I do have a mover and a seconder for this motion, and I'll read it and then take questions. Whereas, and then there's a move by Alan, a second by Richie. Whereas concerns have been raised regarding the new signalized pedestrian crossing on Penetanguishene Road in the community of Hillsdale, be it therefore resolved that Council for the Township of Springwater directs staff to send a letter to the Ministry of Transportation requesting that the concerns be addressed to ensure increased safety for the residents. Any questions or comments on that resolution? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So that's what we're doing. So now we'll go back to the regular agenda and 7.1, the adoption of minutes of council. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Austin and Allen. And that the minutes of the council items 7.2 through to 7.3 be approved as presented. Do you want to pull any of these? All those in favor? Carried. And now we'll move on to minutes of boards. And can I have a mover and a seconder? Alan and Hannah. That the minutes of boards, committees, and other organizations, item 7.5, be received as information. Any questions on that or comments? All those in favor? Carried.
Sorry, Mayor French,
Yes?
I was gapping. Were
Councillor
we
Austin?
talking about 8.2 and 8.3?
No, not there yet. Well, we will be shortly. So 8.1, and can I have a mover and a second to the recommendation of Finance and Audit Committee contained in items 8.2 through to 8.3 be approved as presented. So I need a mover and a seconder to get discussion. Hannah and Alan? Okay, and do we want to pull it, or do you want to just ask a question, Councillor Austin?
Yes, Mayor French, 8.2 and 8.3. I'll start with 8.2, and they're very brief questions.
Okay.
First question under 8.2, can you tell me who the members of the Finance and Audit Committee are?
The council members are Councillor Hannah and Deputy Mayor Allen.
All right.
Next question.
8.3, what does the acronym POA stand for? It's talking about POA revenues.
I'll go CEO Brindley.
Thank you, Mayor. Through to Councillor Austin. POA is Provincial Offences Act. It's those charges that are done through the tickets that the police issue based on our jurisdiction.
Okay.
And revenues that are related to those tickets.
Oh, yeah, that's right, too.
Okay.
Parking tickets, you pay that.
And what are JCAC legal fees? What does the acronym JCAC stand for?
CEO Brindley?
Can I get the appendix? Just because usually JSAC is it's the emergency services, but I'm thinking we have a JSAC committee, but I have a feeling my clerk has another acronym for this, so.
That would be the Joint Compliance Audit Committee.
Okay, all right.
Okay, any other questions? All those in favor? Oh, sorry, Deputy Mayor Allen.
Thank you, Mayor French. I have a comment about the 2017 budget and business plan. Previous Springwater Councillor Rick Webster today sent an email to Council insinuating that reviewing the township half-year financial results to June 30th and including it in this agenda is somehow late and not good management of Springwater affairs. I feel this is a baseless innuendo and an unfair comment. Previous year's mid-year financial status reports have occurred at similar times to that of this year. Keep in mind that we only have 2 council meetings during the summer, one at the beginning of July, which is too early for staff to turn a report around with respect to this, and a second one being in August. I would refer Webster and anyone else who thinks this is a major item to similar agenda timeframes in 2014 during the previous council, which he was on, and 2015 and 2016 for this council, wherein similar mid-year reports were dealt with at this time of year. In addition, Director Schmidt has had the challenge over the last 6 months filling open staff positions in his department. The timing of release of this information is reasonable given historical practice and the circumstances, and we continue as a council and staff to be fiscally prudent and responsible as staff and council of Springwater.
Thank you. Councillor Hanna?
Thank you, Mayor French, and I concur with Deputy Mayor Allen's observations and comments. And the other thing I would point out that not just these finance audit minutes, but all our minutes, we have lengthy discussions. And I know we can't add all the content that takes place in those discussions into our minutes, but in our finance audit committee minutes, we had long discussions that day, and nothing against the person recording them. I wouldn't want to be the one doing it, but it doesn't necessarily reflect all the discussions that take place, the same as a lot of our minutes. So maybe that's something we could look at, just expanding a little bit more on the content that takes place in our minutes, so people who want to criticize can actually see what does take place and know that we are diligent about doing the things that we need to before we make decisions.
Councillor McConkey.
I just have a comment on the capital project status report. I have, prior to this meeting, I did follow up on any of the projects in my area to get a more complete status, but I find that maybe the status report in the future should, when you see that it just says contract awarded May 3rd, 2017, yet we haven't spent anything, it doesn't mean anything to the residents reading this. What I get from the residents is, when will it be completed? And so if we could have like a projected date of completion, and I will say I have a little bit of fear looking at this type of report and seeing that we haven't completed a lot of our capital projects, and we're in September. In the private world, you would be really wanting to know, you'd be releasing money and getting some other projects done at this time, looking at those. So I just hope, I know that there's been a lot of rain this year and it's held off, but I think that sometimes when the contractors are taking us on, are they just saying, oh, well, we're a small municipality and putting us in the back? I think, we do our due diligence. We get our budget done first, and I think that a lot of the councillors here are very proud of that, so that we can get our budget out there and get our work done. But when I look at this, I wonder why. So I'd rather spend the time on the budget than let them hold our money. So, and I'd like more completion on a report next time.
I think the one comment, maybe CEO Brindley, now the June 30th is the financial status. It's not really kind of the report on the projects. And I think that's the important thing. It's financial rather than operational. And we've recorded where the money's been spent. And possibly there should be another report on operational side saying where are we at in the project, because this is intended as a financial. CEO Brindley?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, but, and the other side is council just needs to, like this, give us positive input, and we'd be more than happy to create new columns or do new things to help you understand our program better. So the takeaway is definitely we will amend this to provide more detail on the status of the projects. We'd be happy to do that.
Did you have a final comment?
Yes,
Mayor
Mayor French, just adding to what Councillor Hanna said, and the meetings of Finance and Audit are completely open for anybody who wants to attend. And the minutes and reports are distributed in advance and are on the website.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Correspondence items. Get it on the floor. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Coughlin? Allen? And is there any of these items that we want to pull? Councillor Ritchie.
Mayor French, I'd like to speak to 9.2 if I could.
Yes, do you want to pull it or just want to speak to it?
I'd like to pull it, please.
Okay, we'll pull that. Is there any others we'd like to pull on here? Probably not. Okay, we will deal with the other matters. Moved by Colling, second by Allen, that correspondence and information items 9.2 through to 9.4 be received as information with the exception of item 9.2 to be introduced separately. All those in favor? Carried. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor French. I read this, and I support this wholeheartedly, and I'd like to know, I need some guidance here. Maybe our CEO can help us, like, what can we do to support these guys and support this as well, too? And I have a fellow in my area, Mill Street, does veggies, has been doing it for a long time. They do an exceptional business. And he's approached me there a couple times over the years. This year, he's lost 200 dozen of sweet corn to wild turkeys, coyotes, raccoons. So you take 200 dozen of sweet corn at $8 a dozen. That's $16,000. That's a hell of a lot of money for a guy trying to make it off the land. So that's just one spot. That's in our municipality. I know up around in Tate Township there, Y Heritage Marsh there. A lot of the farmers get dinged every year with the big flocks of geese coming in out of the marsh, and they feed at our expense, just like they're doing with this guy. So if there's something we could send to support these people and get some kind of a compensation program, it'd be welcomed by the farmers that are being affected by that. And trust me, I feed them as well too. So if there's anything we could do, I look forward to that.
Okay, the clerk is just describing something here, and yes, Councillor Coghlan.
Thank you, Mayor French. Through you to CAO Brinley, the program that we do have in place in Springwater, can we elaborate on that? Like, we do have, like, what is the compensation offered now? And I remember at the beginning of our term, we were trying to appoint someone to be that, but their position wasn't filled. Is there someone, or do we contract that?
Yeah, I think you're referring to the dead livestock portion of it rather than crops. I think. CEO Brinley, do you want to clarify that?
This letter here actually acknowledges both, so I was just curious if what we do have offered to the residents.
CEO Brinley?
Thank you, Mayor French, through to Councillor Coghlan. Yeah, my interaction has mostly been in the area where we compensate or we investigate instances where livestock are attacked by wild animals. I haven't really had much, I've never actually seen too many claims in the way of the actual crop damage. But, I mean, we have been able to get by. We have inspectors, but I know that even when it comes to that, there's very strict criteria as it relates to what is a claim and not a claim. And I know that when our inspectors go out on site, you know, there are times when claims are not allowed because of certain criteria. So I'm just saying, I think what, in general, the intent of this letter and the intent of probably if council supports it is that the criteria should be broader, that we should support our farmers more, because I know that sometimes I've seen reports where, to me, it looks like a legitimate claim, but because of criteria, it isn't, the farmer isn't compensated for damage to their animals in that case.
Councillor Hannah?
Thank you, Mayor French, and I have some familiarity with the Livestock Protection Act, the livestock evaluators and so on, but when I read this report, I thought it was just basically damage or livestock that were being killed. I didn't see anything to do with crops, so if I missed it, somebody can tell me where it is in here, but I'm not saying we shouldn't help the farmers who are losing crops, but I just didn't see it in the report, and I've suggested if we're going to do something, it would be nice to have Councilor Ritchie, who's familiar with it, maybe some kind of update to give us the exact amount of damage and reports where these things have taken place, so we're not just shooting our gun without having some ammunition, and as to why we're asking the province, if you like, to bring in some kind of legislation to compensate people losing crops if it's not in fact a problem that we can identify and support.
Any comments? Councillor Coghlan?
Sorry, in the report, and maybe Councillor Ritchie may be speaking to, it says the municipalities producers, so I don't know if that was where it was just producers. It does speak in A about the dead stock, and then there's B, and it speaks to the municipalities producers, so maybe clarification from Oro Medonte on that before because I do agree, it would be nice to know what we already do before we suggest to do something different.
So, Councillor Ritchie, there is a suggestion here to get the ball rolling, that the correspondence be received and the Township of Springwater supports the resolution of the Township of Oro Medonte regarding Ontario Wildlife Compensation Program. So if we want to start there, I think you want to extend beyond that to obviously crops rather than just dead livestock.
Well, I don't know where we're talking about dead livestock. I'm talking about Ontario's Wildlife Damage Compensation Program. It's the wildlife that is affecting our crops. Like they're feeding on us.
Read the letter, and it doesn't talk about it.
The letter doesn't refer anything to crops, it refers to dead livestock. That's all I'm saying.
But we already got inspectors for dead livestock. Am I missing something here? Like,
No, yeah, no.
I had an app before I came.
No, they are asking for a change in the compensation program because I think CEO Brindley touched on there, sometimes claims come in and they're not recognized, which is kind of surprising.
Mayor
And that
French,
has-
we see this a lot, like, and to the people in the Minising area, the Minising swamplands, like, those farmers over there, like, there's a lot of cash croppers. The majority of people now are cash croppers. And they're coming in and they're taking out, like this guy here, he's a veggie guy. 200 dozen of sweet corn. That's a lot of stuff. That ain't counting the other stuff that they're taking. So if there's something that we could do to support this and further this, support what the Oro Medonte's, then I support this 100%. Maybe we should be sending this off to our MP that can bring this up in Queen's Park.
I think it might be two things here. Let's deal with one. The one is, I think we in general support obviously the resolution of Oro Medonte, but I think you brought up other subject matter that we probably should have our own resolution, possibly in the future, dealing with crop damage from wildlife, because that's what you're specifically referring to. Okay, Councillor McConkey first.
On that note of looking at the crop damage from wildlife, I think that we'd have to work with the NVCA as well, with the different, and the ministry about the programs like with the wild turkey and that, because they do have programs trying to restrict them and that. So I don't think it's as easy as just saying, we're going to give them money of something. I think they have to do something with the animals that are over plentiful and stuff, because deer can even do damage to crops. So it's a bigger issue than, just saying a resolution. So yeah, we'll take time and we can look into it further.
Councillor Coghlan.
I was just going to ask if maybe bringing up in items for future consideration that a report on what is already existing and available to residents, so maybe we can share that information that exists with them, and then from that point determine whether there's something more we'd like to do, but to have that information available to residents would be beneficial.
Councillor Austin.
Following up on what Councillor Hanna and Councillor Coghlan has said, finding out the information on the data before we actually make a decision. So I'm just wondering if the Ontario Federation of Agriculture or the Simcoe County Federation of Agriculture might be keeping track of incidents where farmers are saying, I've lost so much in the way of produce from animals. So that might be a good place to start to get that data. And as Councillor Hanna pointed out, we don't want to make a decision until we have the information that we need.
Yeah, and I'm going to go to CEO Brindley in a second, but there are two separate issues. I think the one issue, obviously, the Simcoe County Federation of Agriculture have an issue of the way they're remunerated, because sometimes the carcasses are half ate in that, and sometimes they don't recognize the claim if there's already been partial consumption of the carcass. So there is a problem on that side of it, and I think this is what this letter deals with, and I think we could support this. But as Councillor Coghlan mentioned, probably a good idea, and items for future consideration, let's investigate the potential of us having a resolution on crop damage from wildlife, because I think they are two separate issues. But CEO Brindley?
Thank you, Mayor. I think you pretty well got it all. Yeah, I would hopefully recommend to council is to move forward with the resolution, because I know from looking at claims that there is some ambiguity in there, and there are times where claims are not allowed. At the same time, we'd welcome the item for future consideration, but what I would do, two things. One is investigate the things around crop damage and see what we can do there. But at the same time, I will provide council some background in terms of what our claims. It's hard for me to go outside our municipality and get claims histories, but I can at least provide council, say, the last 5 years, and give you an idea of the types of claims, number of claims, and those kind of things. So I could definitely dig into the data for this council, at least what happens within Springwater.
So for the moment, and I assume Councillor Ritchie, maybe you'll move this and we get a seconder, that corresponds and information item 9.2 be received as information, and that the Township of Springwater supports the resolution for the Township of Oro-Medonte regarding the Ontario Wildlife Compensation Program. So you'll move it. Can I have a seconder? Alan? So you've heard the motion. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. And now we will move on to action reports. And the first one deals with approval of subdivision, Elmville Village subdivision. Can I have a mover and a seconder to get discussion? Austin, Coghlan, just so you know what we're going to be talking about. The report from the planner regarding OP-2016-004 and ZB-2016-019, 169 Queen Street West, dated September 20th, 2017, be received and the council adopt the official plan amendment, and that the amendment be submitted to the County of Simcoe for approval, subject to minor modifications. That the council approve the zoning bylaw amendment, subject to the final approval of the official plan amendment by the County of Simcoe. Questions, discussion? All those in, Councillor Austin.
Yes, I just wanted to, I had a discussion with Director Coleman today about the comment that the Ainley Group has confirmed through an updated analysis of the Elmville wastewater treatment plan reserve capacity that there's sufficient wastewater capacity to service the ultimate forecast of 573 residential units being proposed through development. So I just wanted clarification for the public record from Director Coleman. The 573 residential units, does that include all the potential residential units or close to it within the Elmville settlement area? Because what this report is saying is that right now we have enough capacity to deal with all that. But at some time in the future, when we reach that capacity, we might have to consider upgrades to the plant. So just asking for clarification from Director Coleman.
Yeah, go to Director Coleman or Director Spagnol. I think that's the total capacity of the treatment and facilities that exist today for all of Elmville. Yeah, that would be connected to full municipal infrastructure. So, Director Spagnol, do you want to run with it?
Thank you, Mayor French. Through you to Councillor Austin. What the 573 residential units speaks to is all applications that are sitting with the planning department as we speak to date. And what it's verifying is that there is capacity in the sanitary system to service that number of units and those developments that we have in application form. What it also does is it provides us with a little bit of upfront notice that we should probably start considering potential expansions in process to take a look at expansion to the plant once we hit the 20% capacity, which is referenced by Ainley Group. So it's more of an ongoing monitoring process, and when we do hit the 20%, once we have build-out of that amount of units, then it's at that point in time that we should be taking a look at potential plant expansions.
Okay, any other questions? Councillor Hanna?
Thank you, Mayor French. Just for clarification, in the past I was told that in order to increase the size of the waste plant, then the amount of effluent that would be going into the local stream wouldn't be able to handle any expansion. So I don't know if that's accurate or not, but that came from the previous Director of Public Works to me and to you as well.
I remember something about this.
Director Coleman, do you have any initial comment on this?
Thank you, Mayor French. Through you to Councillor Hanna. I think that at that point we would have to look at a higher standard of treatment so that the effluent is treated to a higher standard so that, like the future Midhurst, there'd be zero phosphorus, lower nitrates, and that sort of thing. In addition to that, moving forward into next year, we're going to look at inflow and infiltration, which will ultimately, if planned properly, will actually reduce the flow to the plant, because right now we have old leaky pipes and maintenance holes. So if we can keep the rainwater out, then we may have additional future capacity at the plant itself.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And also, I'm sure you recall the discussions that some of the supporters for our splash pads and the information we received that to create a splash pad and flow the water into the wastewater system would eliminate the ability to handle 20 or 22 homes would have to be taken off of what we're allowed to build under our current, or under any future, I guess, waste water going into, or effluent water going into the stream and our waste plant.
Okay, yeah, I think the key is that there could be more capacity, but the technology would have to change in Elmville. But based on today's technology, that's where that total number comes from. Councillor McConkey.
I also thought that there was a restriction on the capacity that the Y could handle, and I thought that that's where the issue also raises, is that the Y can only handle so much, and that's where it's going to, and that the Y wasn't to take any more.
And again, I think it's the same point, based on today's technology where we're not removing as much ingredients. I think that's where the criteria would change. The technology would have to change so the assimilative capacity of the Y could absorb it. But that's quite far down the road and would be a lot of money. Councillor Ritchie.
Thank you, Mayor French. Through to the Director of Public Works. How much sludge would we take out of the Elmville sewage treatment plant on a yearly basis? The region of Huronia, they take it out and they take it over there and they let it neutralize, and then eventually the good stuff is spread on the field. So how much of that is taken out of the Elmville plant? Is there any numbers on that at all?
Director Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor French. Through you to Councillor Ritchie. I don't have those numbers. I could probably get them from Aqua. I mean, we'd be paying invoices based on quantity, so I can certainly get those and get back to you.
Okay, any other questions on that? All those in favor? Carry. And the next one we'll be discussing is the Elmville wastewater treatment plant replacement of aeration blowers. Can I have a mover and a second to get it on the floor? McConkey, Hanna. Just so you know what we'll be talking about, and I think you do, that the report from the Director of Public Works regarding the replacement of the aeration blowers and the upgrade of the aerobic digester with a control valve and mass flow meter dated September 20th, 2017 be received and that the Ontario Clean Water Agency be awarded the engineering, procurement, and contract administration of the supply and installation of the replacement aeration blowers and the upgrade of the aerobic digester with a control valve and mass flow meter in the amount of $305,800, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute the necessary agreement. Questions? Councillor Hanna.
Thank you, Mayor, and I know we have staff that were probably already on top of this, but I know that it's going to be 2 weeks where the water will be closed down and we'll be using water tankers. It's in July. Will we be implementing any lawn watering restrictions during that period?
Director Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor French. I believe that's the next report, the Hillsdale Water Tower.
Thank you. I didn't see it if it's there.
I'll answer that in the next round.
Actually, I think they're two separate subject matter. One's, we're dealing with the Elmville, or are you talking about the Hillsdale?
Sorry, I was talking about Hillsdale. I
Okay,
thought we'd
all
already
right. Okay,
passed
well, let's
on
deal
to
with the
that one.
Elmville one first.
Well, there you go. Thank you.
Councillor Austin.
Do we have a date as to when this is going to be done?
Director Coleman.
Thank you, Mayor French. They will begin as soon as they get the go-ahead. Certainly, all of the mechanical equipment will have to be ordered and supplied, starting this fall, and then probably moving into next spring before we get completion, as some of the money has to come out of the 2018 budget. Ultimate completion for this, because of the funding, will be March the 31st of 2018.
Okay, any other questions on that? All those in favor? Carried. Now we'll move on to Hillsdale. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Alan, Hannah. That the report from the Director of Public Works regarding the upgrade to Hillsdale Water Tower standpipe dated September 20th, 2017 be received, and that Greatario Services be retained to upgrade the Hillsdale Water Tower standpipe at a cost of $73,005 plus HST. And maybe pick up the answer to your question. Would you like to repeat the question, Councillor Hanna?
Well, thank you. No, the observation I was just trying to make is that the water tank or the stand will be closed for 2 weeks. We'll be providing water to the residents there, basically through the pumping system, and water tankers will be used. So it would be unfortunate if some of that water was being used to water lawns, and I would just suggesting that if we haven't, and I'm sure staff have thought about it, we should be putting in water restrictions in place, because it is during July. And it would be something we usually have a summer bylaw person on staff. That would be something to keep them busy, watching to make sure people aren't watering their lawns when they shouldn't be.
Director Coleman, any comments?
Thank you, Mayor French. Through you to Councillor Hanna. The work is actually forecasted for May of next year. But yes, certainly a watering ban would be in place. I believe the last time this work was carried out, there was a lawn watering ban. Fire Services is aware. They have reciprocal agreements with other municipalities if they need it. And we would be able to service the residents.
Any other questions on that? All those in favor? Carried. Okay, the next one is regarding the Council Code of Conduct, and of course we have some options here. And I'll need a mover and a second. The report from the clerk regarding the Council Code of Conduct dated September 20th, 2017 be received. That staff be directed to continue with the Council Code of Conduct project, or that the Council Code of Conduct project be deferred until provincial regulations surrounding the mandatory Code of Conduct and Integrity Commissioner are released. So I have a mover and a seconder. Coughlin, Ritchie. Okay, open for discussion. Oh, sorry. I'll turn to the clerk first.
Just as a point of clarification, new information has been released since I authored the report. On Monday, the province advised that the Lieutenant Governor proclaimed certain aspects of the Act that hadn't been proclaimed previously. So the Code of Conduct will be mandatory as of March 1st, 2019. The regulations still have not been released, and we're not too sure when they will be released. There would be a lot of we would need to ensure that we are prepared to adopt by March 1st, 2019 in accordance with the regulations. So I would suggest if there is a deferral to the regulations, that it's not deferred until it's mandatory, because everything would need to be adopted and in place by that date.
Okay, with that in mind, Councillor McConkey?
I have a whole issue with the province doing Bill 68 and modernizing the municipal level for code of conduct. I feel that this council should write the province and ask them that we are willing to follow Bill 68 once they have a code of conduct. Like, I don't know how they can mandate us to have a code of conduct when they don't. So I'm not signing any code of conduct until the province is willing to, and I will, next meeting, I will probably bring a notice of motion for a letter to be sent, because it's not right.
Thank you. Other comments on this? And Councillor Coghlan?
Thank you, Mayor French. And I do agree with Councillor McConkey that it shouldn't be mandated to have a code of conduct. I don't think it's something that should be mandated at all. I think it's something that we do for our residents. Like I said, it's the same pair could be that we are mandating staff to have one. The county council, as county councilors, they're mandated, they have one as well. So I disagree that it's not about it being mandatory. I think this is something that we do out of ethics, out of, I don't even know if you want to say goodwill. It is showing that we will conduct ourselves in accordance with what we choose, what we agree, how municipal councilors should be conducted. I don't agree with waiting until it's mandated. I think that a lot of great work has been done on this. I think that we've made good strides and had some good working sessions. I think that Clerk Renee, or Chaperone, sorry, continues the work, and we come up with something that we can approve for ourselves and for, essentially, for the residents.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Allen, and then Councillor Austin.
Thank you, Mayor French. Although the regs are not out, and it's not certain when they will be out, given that they have a date of March 2019, when realistically would they be out to give us some further guidance?
Clerk Chaperone?
Sorry, just for clarification, are you asking when the regulations might be released? We're not too sure.
But they couldn't demand that we have a code of conduct without ample time period of having the regulations out, correct?
Clerk Chaperone?
That's correct. So the effective date of having a code of conduct in place is March 1st, 2019. The regulations will just stipulate what should be included or not included, whatnot, for that effective date. So should council continue with a project of having a code of conduct, it would be, there wouldn't be regulations surrounding that. It would be as council would wish until that March 1st, 2019 date, where it would have to include the provisions that would be released in the regulations.
But clearly they would logically, although they're not always logical, get the regulations out with a good lead time to enable us to fulfill their deadline, correct?
Clerk Chaperone?
Correct.
Okay, Councillor Hannah?
Thank you. I would just, my observation is if they don't have the code of conduct out yet, I don't see the rush for us. I've been on council like some of the other people sitting here for 7 years, with this council for 3 years, and I think everybody conducts themselves in an adult, professional manner. The only big problem I have with the code of conduct is that it looks like they want to target what you do outside of the council chamber as well, and that's where some of the, I don't want to use an improper word, but some of the people who might want to try to annoy us with frivolous complaints and so on would have an opportunity to do so. So I'd like to wait and see when the province comes forward with it, rather than jump the gun and then do it properly.
Councillor Austin?
My question is directed to Councillor McConkey. Do you know for a fact that the provincial legislature does not have a code of conduct?
I researched, and to Councillor Hannah's, if you don't, is anyone else speaking? But to
Sure, carry on.
To
I've
Councillor
lost
Hannah's
control. Go
point,
ahead.
AMO was really concerned about what they were trying to pass, because what could happen with this new code of conduct is you can have someone who doesn't even like you in another municipality. So it could be someone from way back in your high school days or something, they hear some stuff. It's not just people in the municipality that are reporting you. It's going outside of the municipality. So AMO had concerns with that. I have concerns with that. And I have concerns that, we're being, I look at the province as like our parents. And you like to conduct yourself the way your parents are. And I think it's them to step up first. And I feel I do try to abide by a code of conduct and abide professionally. And if I don't, I probably won't get elected again. So it's how I behave in that, and how you get elected in that. So it's out of principle that I will be stubborn on this one anyways, but others may not.
Councillor Hannah?
Just to add what I said earlier, and same as Councillor McConkey, some of us have received frivolous, if you like, requests for freedom of information, requests on our personal emails and so on. Again, I think this is just an opportunity or a vehicle, if you like, for those type of people to further pursue you and sick the dogs on you, if you like, for your conduct outside the chamber. And I think it's better if we could avoid it. The other thing I would suggest that this is going to be a deterrent, in my view, for quality people who want to run for elected office. Why would they want to put themselves in jeopardy with this? I was going to say BS, but I won't.
Okay, Clerk Chaperon wanted to make a comment.
I wanted to clarify on your comment regarding who can complain. The province did change that once they brought the legislation back for third reading. And it wasn't, they had removed the provision for just a resident, but it was people of interest. So whoever had interest within the municipality, you had to prove if you had a business, if your kids went to school within that municipality, some type of interest within the township versus just anybody within the province.
Could it be a special interest group then? Because they could have interest in the municipality. And so if you're not sort of weeding towards that special interest group.
Clerk Chaperon, do you want to respond to that?
We don't have all of the specifications. We're not too sure if it has to be a person or if groups are excluded. That hasn't been released yet.
Okay, any other comments from anybody? I have some comments, but Councillor Coghlan, no, you go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor French. Understanding that this will be March 2019, and understanding our term of council is over before then. I know I've been pushing this at the entire council, and I appreciate you working with me through this. It's something that I am passionate about. I was told when I was elected to read the Municipal Act, find out the Code of Conduct and your policies and procedures, and I was very surprised to find that we didn't have one. So that's what initiated this entire venture, is that I feel that there should be a Code of Conduct on council, not just this council, not past council, but all future existing and future councils. I do agree that there, as Councillor Hannah said, all types of people, but we are elected by all types of people, and we are responsible and accountable to every resident of Springwater. So while there may be people that come up and use this as a tool to target us, I think that it offers residents, we are accountable to our residents. So I continue to do this. I'm going to ask for it to be voted on tonight, and if this council doesn't support to have it continued, that's the will of council, and we'll move on from there.
Deputy Mayor Allen?
Thank you, Mayor French. I support the theory of it, but I don't like doing things without really knowing what the rules are to work with. So I think once we get the regulations, we can, if we're still in office and we're not in a lame duck period, we can accelerate the completion of this exercise. And if we're not able to do it, then the next council will do it. So I agree in principle. I just don't like to do it without sufficient information.
Councillor Coghlan.
Thank you, Mayor French. And just on to Deputy Allen's points, I agree that there are rules coming, and they've already changed them. They've changed the date, they're changing it. The rules today are the same that they were in August when I brought this up 2 years ago. So we're still playing with those same rules. Nothing has changed. We understand that change may come, but nothing's changed. The rules are the same, the information's the same. A lot of work has gone into this, and I would like to see this complete.
Okay, and my final comments is, and I will remind us all, in our strategic planning, we did suggest that was a part of our plan to invoke a code of conduct. I think it should be one line or one word, behave. And that should be the code of conduct, because the code of conduct does deal with our conduct outside of this chamber. Our procedural bylaw and our decorum deals with what we do in this chamber. And I don't have a problem continuing, provided it is the downsized version that was presented to us last, and at least it's not deep-rooted, but it probably would be easier to modify to meet whatever the new requirements might be at some time. So if it meant continuing with the kind of the downsized version of the code of conduct, I would be supportive of moving forward with it, because I don't have a problem with it. Councillor McConkey.
I read the downsized version and I compared it to what Barry had and some other. I feel that the downside version, it's open, and you'd be open to legal. I'd rather have something that's going to pinpoint me and tell me exactly how I have to behave and da-da-da-da-da. If you've got open on both sides, and I want to protect everybody here. When I looked at it, I would have a lawyer look at it before we would sign something like that, because it is too open, and you could get in trouble with it.
And I think we'd have to be clear that obviously we're not going to approve anything that hasn't been reviewed anyways from a legal status, even after we draft it, and that when it comes to the liability aspect of it. Okay, with that in mind, I think we've had good discussion. So, Councillor Coghlan, it's your motion. What option would you like to choose, and we'll see where it goes.
I don't have the actual wording in front of me, but the first, that we continue with the exercise.
Okay, all right. So I'll read. So moved by Colling and second by Ritchie, the report from the clerk regarding the council code of conduct dated September 20, 2017 be received, that staff be directed to continue with the council code of conduct project. Deputy Mayor Allen.
Clerk Renee, can you clarify what continue with the code of conduct project would involve, please?
Clerk Chaperone.
Yes, that would be taking the comments that were received after the last session, making amendments to the draft, and submitting it to council for consideration again.
Okay. So Councillor Ritchie, did you have a?
No, I just wanted to make sure that Councillor Ritchie was still okay seconding it after I made the decision to go with the first option.
I think it simply means that we're getting it on the table anyways.
I'll put it on the table.
Yeah, no, that's what we're doing. No, that's fine. Okay. Yes. Yes, you may.
Mayor French, I'm feeling the same thing as Councillor Hanna and Councillor McConkey, and my concern is with social media today, like outside the chamber here. I feel I'm second term. I'm accountable to the people of Springwater Township, regardless of where I am, and I'm in the public eye all the time. But social media today, if I was at a dance and I accidentally fell down or something like that, and they go click, you're on the hook. What the hell's going on here? And you know what? There's enough people out there wanting to get their digs in without giving them an open door, and I have a concern about that. Yes, we're on the hook. And there's nobody stopping anybody from picking up the phone, or trust me, I've been told lots of times, but until they get it right, and I agree with the deputy mayor, I wanted more information on this, and let Queen's Park get their act in gear down there. It's like a damn zoo. And they're worried about what we're doing? Clean up your mess first before you come preaching. No thanks.
No, I hear your comments, and the only reason I will support the resolution is because we all agreed in our strategic planning meeting to have a code of conduct. That's the only reason, and I will be very critical as we go through it, and I won't adopt a code of conduct that I do believe is going to obviously open the floodgates. But that's the only reason I will support this resolution. Deputy Mayor Allen.
Further to that, thank you, Mayor French. I just clarify that the second option doesn't mean that it's canceled. It says project be deferred until. So you're still fulfilling the obligation. We're not fulfilling the obligation by picking the second option.
Duly noted. The resolution as we, okay, all right, I'll remind everybody. Moved by Coghlan, second by Rishi, that the report from the clerk regarding the council code of conduct dated September 20, 2017 be received. Staff be directed to continue with the council code of conduct project. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion is defeated or lost. Yes, Deputy Mayor Allen?
So does that mean the motion is passed, is the second?
No, there's nothing passed. Basically, now we've, well, the way I understand, I'll let Clerk Chaperon explain what just happened.
So that motion that ended up being tabled was to continue with the project right now. Once the province mandates us to, it would be my responsibility and my duty to bring it back to council and continue with the process once the province mandates so.
Okay. Moving on, we're on to number 11, information reports. And I need to get it on the table. So the reports item 11.2 through to 11.6 to be received as information. So I move her in a second, and then we'll start pulling the ones that are necessary. Hannah, moved, seconded by Coghlan. Okay, is there any of these reports that we would like to pull? Councillor McConkey.
Question on the 11.3, I don't, that's
Okay,
all.
pose the question.
With the sale of the Pine Grove Road gravel pit, will any of that money go to the Grenfell Hall? Because it's so close in perimeter?
CEO Brindley?
Thank you, Mayor French. Through to Councillor McConkey, there's nothing that stipulates where those funds go. They just go into the general reserve, so nice try. No. Unfortunately, I mean, council out of that general reserve can determine what goes to different locations, but as it stands right now, just this was also brought up at, as you recall, at the Grenfell Town Hall we had, and actually one resident even stated that it was their understanding that the money was to stay local, but we don't have any track of that opinion. Like, we don't have anything that tells us that. So right now, the money is still sitting in the reserve, and it would be up to council to determine where that money goes.
So I guess the good news that it hasn't been allocated to anything specific at this point. Okay, any other reports anybody want to pull? Okay, seeing none, moved by Hannah, second Coghlan, that the report, I guess I have to wait until Councillor Hannah's back. Okay. Shall we change the mover? Okay, I'd need a new seconder to receive the reports. Okay, so Coghlan and Allen. That report items 11.2 through to 11.6 be received as information. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, we're now moving on to verbal reports. Official plan update, Director Spagnol.
Thank you, Mayor French. I'd just like to advise council that There is a report that has just been submitted and published from the Planning Department that details a number of the changes related to the growth plan, along with potential impacts that those changes could have on the township's official plan review and update process, and that a special council meeting is scheduled for September 25th to start at 4:30 p.m. for me to go over the report and answer any questions that council may have with respect to the township's process.
And of course, part of this is in response to the county tabled a report that kind of caught some of us off guard, and our local planners didn't know about it. And I do understand they've had a meeting, and so Mr. Spagnuolo has got some clarification on it. And the agenda was released today, just so everybody knows, so you can kind of read that report. Any questions on that? Councillor Coghlan?
Thank you, Mayor French. Through you to Director Spagnuolo, when speaking to you about those changes, it was mentioned in our recreation meeting about boundary adjustments through our OP, but there was, just to share with the members of council that were in questioning about it, but they're now stipulating that there will be we can't move forward with our exercise if any boundary adjustments are proposed.
Director Spagnuolo?
Thank you, Mayor French. Through you to Councillor Coghlan. One of the key policies in the growth plan speaks to expansions to settlement area boundaries. And under the growth plan, there cannot be any expansions to settlement area boundaries without a municipal comprehensive review, which needs to be conducted by the County of Simcoe in collaboration with the ministry or the province, and it also requires approval by the province. So that's the basis for settlement area boundary expansions.
Yeah, and quite, that's a good comment, and something that was said the other day by Councillor Ritchie. If we ever wanted to, and there was some expression when we're talking about a recreation master plan of expanding the settlement area of Elmville, we would have to convince the County of Simcoe in their municipal comprehensive review that it was needed and why it would be justified. So the battle might be a little tougher, but it wouldn't be able to be included in our current review update because it has to be in compliance with all the policies of the county today. But it doesn't mean it's impossible in the future. I just want to emphasize that. Okay. Yes. But we have a good discussion on that when we kind of table it at the special meeting. Economic development update, Director Spagnuolo.
Thank you, Mayor French. I don't have anything to report on economic development at this point.
Actually, because I forgot, when is do you have the date of the business breakfast? Because I haven't put it in here. It's in November. That is a helpful hint. Anyway. Okay, anyway, sorry to catch you off guard in there. And anyway, we will be having one. So county updates.
Yes, Mayor French, yeah, there's lots happening at county. Was pleased that the high-level tax levy increase to be incorporated in the 2018 Simcoe draft budget was reduced from 2% to 1%. Been trying to do that since the strategic plan in June. It had been deferred a couple of times, but we discussed it, and there was a recorded vote, and it went through by 82 to 19, so that was a good result. So the Simcoe County budget will be starting at a high-level assumption of 1% rather than 2%, and that will help all the municipalities. Also discussed was a governance committee report on the future appointment of the warden. There was considerable discussion about the options, status quo, or appointed as a warden, full-time warden. He resigned as mayor, deputy mayor, the warden elected at large, the warden election via an appointment of a qualified non-elected person. So the governance report was received with no further direction given, and the clerk has written the ministry to confirm the different options that are being considered. That response will come back to the governance committee. They will do another report and bring it to county council for further discussion. But that the future position of the warden and how the warden is elected and what term and is being discussed. Also, there was a lot of discussion on the overview of the Growth Plan 217, as we've said, so won't get into that because Director Spagna will be reviewing that based on the further meetings that happened on September 15th with the county, the municipalities, and the province. Of note, next Tuesday, finally, the agenda has just come out regarding the Environmental Resource Recovery Center. And in the agenda, which is available on the Simcoe County website, there are substantial reports on the preliminary business case compiled by staff and Ernst & Young on the materials management facility and the organics processing facility. There's a report on the waste collection contract extensions out into 2 or 3 year extensions and the implementation of a standard size garbage container. So there's a lot of content that for those who are interested, it'd be good to read, and even better to attend the county council meeting next Tuesday, because we're starting to have the rubber hit the road with respect to costs and business cases related to the Environmental Resource Recovery Center.
And the only comment I'll add is when we talk about the governance of the county council, we had a really good workshop, I guess it might be 2 years ago now, and we talked about it and the possibility of maybe council should be elected at large, maybe one representative from each municipality, and not a councillor per se. That's one method. The warden being elected at large, the deputy warden, which is the structure I favor, but based on the county council that exists today, if there was any kind of a vote, they would, I have to suggest they'd vote to retain the status quo, and rather than going into a new model. And the reason I'm supportive of electing warden, councillors and that, because as the mayor and deputy mayor, I don't believe you can answer to two masters. And I only have one master, the residents of Springwater Township. And that time there are conflicts. And so I think the model should change, but definitely not going to in this council's term. So let's move on to any questions on county updates. Councillor Austin.
So just for clarification from the mayor and the deputy mayor, does each county within or other districts within the province have the mandate to choose which way they want to be governed? That there's no set rule by the province under the Municipal Act?
Any change in governance is called a triple majority. The county at large would have to support it. We would have to support it at the municipal level, and the province would have to agree to it. So it would be a long process. There's no question about it. Councillor Anna.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not aware anyway, but there's been a lot of conversation lately about the waste transfer station and what the status is there. And also, I'm sure you're probably aware there was another one of them that caught fire recently. I think it was Markham. It was a waste transfer station or recycling plant, and it was another major fire to be put out at the time. Keeping in mind, if and when this one they're talking about building in our area in Simcoe County, it's going to have a major impact on our ability to provide a fire suppression if these trends seem to happen. So I'd just like to know if there's any update you can provide us on what's going on.
No, I think the update is we're getting an update next week at the reports. They just come out for the county, and then there's lots of information on that. But we, and through our process, our fire services have to determine what would be needed to have safety for the residents, and I don't think we've prepared a report yet for that. So I think that's the update, but Deputy Mayor, if you want.
Yes, those are all valid points that have been raised and continue to be raised, so it'll be interesting as we dissect the reports and the business case to what extent financially potential solutions have been provided for in that, and I'll be interested in staff's opinion with respect to those issues.
I think CEO Brindley had a comment, and then I'll come back to Councillor McConkey.
Thank you, Mayor French. This is actually also in response to Councillor Austin's question, is that there is a move across Ontario to have wardens be elected at large. Primarily it was pushed more from the regional chairs is where it started, and most regional chairs now are elected at large. And so just so you know, although it's not controlled by the province, there has been a move at that level to have that individual, instead of being an appointee, being someone who is elected at large.
Councillor McConkey?
I would just like to ask if one of the county councillors could get this answer for me. We got an email that stated that county councillor the county was not going to have a Remembrance Day service this year as it falls on a Saturday. I was actually quite taken back for it because, I mean, I don't believe the province is going to stop because it's a Saturday. I don't believe the federal government's going to stop because it's a Saturday. And I don't believe the municipality is going to stop because it's a Saturday. So I'd like to understand, are they stopping for good? Or is it just at the convenience to not have it during the weekend? So I need to understand that clarity because, you know, Remembrance Day is a very important day in Canada, and I think it should be respected. And I don't know how that decision was made, and I'd like to find out further information on that.
Well, definitely for any resident, nothing came to county council with this change. I think that needs to be made clear. We became aware of it through the communication from the county. Personally, I'm a little shocked because there's ways of dealing with it. I know most of our municipalities, our elected officials, are at our own celebrations and memorials, but when we've been invited to county and to even Barrie or outside of, we arrange to send representatives, whether it be staff or whatever. So I don't have an answer because I was not aware it was going to happen either. So I'm sure there will be some lively discussion possibly next Tuesday about that, because I think your sentiments are shared. Okay. Shall we move on to municipal updates? Councillor Hanna.
Autumn Fest, September the 30th, Saturday, 11 a.m.
Autumn Fest and Fall Fair.
Thank you.
Any other updates? Councillor Austin.
Yes, I'd just like to report that as this flyer shows, the township has undertaken to continue to have a market selling or featuring local produce and local products, things that are either grown, produced, or made in Simcoe County. So basically, and it will be indoors at the Elmvale Community Hall from starting October 13th, which is the Friday after Thanksgiving, right through to December 15th. So it's basically an extension of the outdoor farmers market in the Elmvale parking lot. We're just bringing it indoors, and I want to thank the staff who have been involved in getting this started. We are looking for more vendors. Success depends on the number of vendors and the number of customers. So we need both. So there's information on the township website for anybody interested in being a vendor and anybody interested in being a customer. And, also, Elmvale Fall Fair is coming up Thanksgiving weekend. It's going to be a big one because it's celebrating Canada's 150.
Good. Any other municipal updates? Councillor Coghlan.
Thank you, Mayor French. On Thursday, the 28th, there is the town hall is in Anton Mills, so everyone is welcome to attend that. And also, while it's not in Springwater, it's the Candlelighter Simcoe. Their superhero stomp is this weekend. We all received letters and invites from the Candlelighters. It's a group of individuals who provide support for children going through grief or cancer patients and things like that. So that the superhero stomp is this Saturday, and I will be attending. And looking forward to dressing up like a superhero.
Okay, any other municipal updates? Okay, seeing none, we will go on to motions to which notice has been given. And we have from Councillor McConkey about the hall funding in community halls. And I'll read, maybe I can get a seconder, that all funding in community halls be directed towards the community halls where the money was raised, and that community halls with debt will be funded by the municipality, and that in 2018 a policy will be set on how funding from rentals, fundraisers, and halls will be handled, as well as debt. The policy must be reviewed by all hall boards and council prior to adoption, that any funding raised prior to the adoption of such policy will be grandfathered to the community halls who raised the funding. So can I have a seconder so we can have discussion? Okay, Coughlin? So the floor is open for comments and questions. Councillor Austin.
Just wording, the first sentence in the recommendation that all funding in community halls, I think it might be better to say all fundraising in community halls.
No. I can speak to that.
If people aren't happy with that, I'm just, you know, it's just a point of wording.
Okay, I'll let you respond.
Yeah,
Councillor
the
Conkey.
motion that all funding in the community halls be directed towards the community halls, it's any funding, meaning fundraisers or rentals right now, stay with the community hall until we have a policy. Because there's no policy that people were doing things differently, and so I would like that all funding stay there. The sentence that says the community halls with debt will be funded by the municipality, I could take that out because it doesn't really go with, like, the motion is that basically any funding that belongs to, if we took a funding report from the community halls today, that it stays that way until we have a policy. So that's sort of where I'm going with the motion.
Okay, yeah, just for clarification, no, so we know what we're talking about, because I was going to ask about that, but I won't now. That second line, are you suggesting you would take it out of your motion then?
Yeah, I would take it out.
Okay, now just so everybody's clear then, what we're saying, that all funding, and maybe the word's not correct, but anyway, in the community halls be directed towards the community halls where the money was raised, and then in 2018, a policy will be set out how funding from rentals, fundraisers, and halls will be handled as well as debt. The policy must be reviewed by all hall boards and council prior to adoption, that any funding raised prior to the adoption of such policy will be grandfathered community halls that raised the funding. And I guess, I mean, one of the thoughts I had was income, but that probably doesn't work either. So other comments, Councillor Hand?
Thank you. I support the removal of that sentence. And also, I think it's important to realize that the statement says that in 2018. So I believe what's being stated here is that it will not be grandfathered, that any money or funds that a community hall currently has belongs to that community hall. However, in the future, when the township is running the rentals and looking after the halls, that funding then will be up to the township, what they want to do with that and how they want to distribute and use it to pay bills and so on. And also that any fundraising done by the halls in the future will be for the halls to run special events and projects. And I think this is important because each hall has been managed differently because there's been no set policy how it would be done. Some halls, actually, the volunteers go and paint the halls. They donate property, they fundraise, they get money, and that's gone into the halls in addition to what was also money that was raised through rentals. So to grandfather it back and take that funds, I would certainly not agree to it, and I think it would cause a lot of problems. We have enough problems now getting volunteers, getting people to fundraise, getting sponsorship money, and if this is going to take place, and as I say, my concern, I keep saying is grandfathered, if this is going to take place and that those funds are going to be taken away before the new policy comes into a place and not leave the funds that belong to those halls with those halls, we're going to have a lot of problems.
Deputy Mayor Allen?
Thank you, Mayor French. I certainly agree with the concepts presented in this motion, but I would suggest and recommend that this be referred to staff to incorporate with the staff report and the bylaw proposals for next meeting that Director Belcourt says he's bringing forward. In June 2017, we had the governance operations report. It was received and a bylaw was to be brought forward to the next council meeting. In June 17, we had the capital cost-sharing policy referred to staff for amendment in accordance with council's comments. So these are gelling and coming together, and my understanding is Director Belcourt it was going to bring forward bylaws for this meeting, but because of circumstances coming forward next meeting. Director Schmidt still has to analyze case by case, see how the debt arose and do some more financial analysis. And I would suggest that a lot of this is still a moving target and in progress between Director Belcourt and Director Schmidt that hopefully will gel and come together in a report that we could then finalize what we've started to do in the operations and the capital cost sharing. So I propose to refer this to staff for a report back with appropriate bylaws for next council meeting.
Councillor Hannah?
Thank you. I understand those reports are coming forward, but it's important thing is that this is an ingredient. This ingredient has to be in those reports when they come forward, because those funds that are currently with the halls belong to those halls. Those funds were raised through sponsorships, through volunteers doing labor at those halls and so on. So those funds that belong to those halls need to stay with those halls. And when those reports come forward, this ingredient has to make sure that that's included in there. Without approving this and adopting this motion, we're not ensuring that's happening. It's not up to staff, while they do a great job, it's not up to staff to make the decision what happens with these funds. It's up to this council. So I want to make sure that that ingredient does get in there and council supports that.
Councillor McConkey?
I feel that it has to be grandfathered and put until a policy. So it sounds like maybe a policy is coming in place next week. If that's fine, then it's you mark it now and say this is what you own and this is what you have in each community hall. The reason I say that is that we didn't have structure before. Some community halls knew that they could put some money into a fundraising account. They could create little accounts. There was nothing in writing. We didn't have constant people coming out and telling you how to manage it. It's very even hard to read a financial statement. So I will tell you, Grenfell just had a fundraiser, and there's word out there that, well, the township's going to take the money. Well, I told them, hang on to that money till we figure this out, honey. Don't you bring the money in. We need to know. They know they did a lot of work there, and they don't know. So we have nothing in writing. And then you look at Midhurst. You had someone running that hall. They held on to that hall till the very last nth. I don't even know if it was a month ago that we took over for that. So should we really be taking their rental money? And you look at Aunt Mills or them, they are very forward in their signage program. I don't know if that signage money went into the hall itself or whether it went into a fundraising account. But that's hard work and labor from somebody that's been doing that, and that those people deserve that money. So when you were not playing by fair rules, and maybe it's not fair that the way it's going to turn out either, but at least we will have rules that we know where it's up front and everybody knows how the game's played. Right now we don't know, so I'm just saying it's not like the township's going to lose a lot of money because of this thing. I think what it's going to do is the hall boards are going to have respect for what we're doing, and I think that's where we have to look at it. So,
okay, procedurally, I have to deal with something here. We have a deferral, which takes preference. I mean, we have to deal with the deferral or referral motion first. So it's moved by Alan. And no, but I got to deal with this first. I should have cut her off. I have to deal. A referral takes precedent. It's supposed to stop all kind of debate, and then yes.
Just referring to the clerk, if I have questions, once the referral's on the floor, if I have questions about the referral, just because I have questions about the existing policy. And in order to refer, if I wanted to refer this, I would need to know what's in the existing policy the draft policy that's already come forward.
Clerk Chaperone?
Yes, once the referral is tabled, the merits of the referral and questions surrounding that can be requested and debated, but not, the main motion can no longer be debated. But if it has to do with the referral,
Once the referral is defeated, then we go back to the.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
yes.
Yes. Okay, so I need a seconder. Okay, Alan's motion is that the motion now before council be referred to staff for further reporting at the next regular meeting. So do I have a seconder? Richie? Okay, everybody, is there any discussion on this, the referral? Okay. Any discussion on the referral? Deputy Mayor Allen? Councillor Coghlan?
Thank you, Mayor French. I understand the concerns raised by residents and brought forward with this. The roundtable discussions that we've had with residents, it was communicated from staff through and with council that everything would remain status quo until a change was adopted and approved by council. And I also understand that there is a disconnect between communication being received. It's unfortunate that notion is out there because it is a lot of work to put events like this on. My concern is that when we received the draft policy, it didn't state that the fundraising money would go to the township. So I feel like this resolution is almost contrary to that. We're saying we're just going to keep doing things the way that we're doing. So I don't know why it's needed. And it's not that it's difficult because it's not that I don't support the idea in it. That's the way it is right now. So my question is, through you, Mayor French, to Director Belcourt, the draft proposal will be coming forward at next council is the first question, because I don't want to defer this for a long time. And the second question is, in the draft cost sharing agreement that came forward, there was nothing stated that any fundraising money would be allocated to the township. It was indicated that it would remain with the hall boards.
Director Belcourt, comments, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Councillor Coghlan on the first question. It will be the bylaw for the endorsing the governance model that was approved by council. It's ready to go. We just need to add the schedules. With regards to the second question, I don't believe, and the capital cost sharing model, that's with capital projects, not on the operational end, which I believe this motion is dealing with the operations of the facilities, not the capital cost sharing agreement.
Deputy Mayor Allen?
Thank you, Mayor French, through you to Director Belcourt and CAO Brindley in the absence of Director Schmidt. I hear what you say there, but in June, we also reviewed the capital cost sharing, which was supposed to be coming forward. This is all related because it's doing with town halls and because people are interested in the operations as well as how the capital is going to work with existing funds and raised funds. So when is it all going to gel together? I was hoping that would be in a report with the appropriate bylaws by next council meeting that would incorporate all of these things being reviewed or addressed in this potential motion.
Director Belcourt or CAO Brindley, either one can comment. CAO Brindley?
Thank you, Mayor, through to council. The challenge is there's still a bit of work to do when it comes to, we've got the actual structure in place. We've got that nailed down. Our challenge right now is actually looking at how we're going to, anything from cleaning contracts on down. So it's actually more of the money stuff we're still working on with the Director of Finance. And my worry is I just don't have him here to know that he's ready for that next council meeting. Because our hope now, because this fall we're actually, one was governance and next was actually operationally and from a capital standpoint, how we can make this happen for 218. I just don't, without the director here, I don't know where he is at when it comes to that.
Follow up.
Thank you, Mayor French. Well, CAO Brindley, do you see this motion as it's worded, with or without the second paragraph, as helping in that exercise if it's passed at this point in time? Or
I think we're supposed to be speaking to the
Do you think that
referral
these
motion.
considerations are already being taken into effect in the exercise that's happening?
Yeah, it is a point of order. We are
Order,
speaking
we-
to the
yeah.
referral.
We have to
rather
speak
than
to
the
the
main
referral.
motion. That's my understanding. Counselor Handy, do you want to speak to the referral? I don't want to speak to the main motion because we're not talking about that.
I got to be careful that I don't break a rule then, but in light of what Councillor Coghlan said, and she used the word fundraiser, it's not just fundraiser, it's the accounts that the calls currently have, which
Yeah.
I want to make
So,
sure
yeah.
is in the report that Mr.
Yeah, no, and I
Davenport
think we're back to talking to the main motion. Sorry about that. So if there's any more discussion, or I'll call the vote on the referral. Okay, I'll read. Moved by Allen, second by Ritchie, that the motion now before council be referred to staff for further reporting at the next regular meeting. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion is lost. So now we go back to the main motion. So we can continue the discussion on that, and Councillor Hanna?
Thank you, and not to confuse it too much, but each hall board has a financial account. That's their bank statement, if you like, the money they have. That money came from fundraising, it came from sponsorship, it came from donations, it also came from rentals. We're not just talking about fundraising here, we're talking about the total accounts that each hall has. What my belief is that Councillor McConkey is trying to state and put forward is that these halls all keep the money that they have in the past, but going forward, the rental money will be something that's circle fly.
Up for discussion.
Yes, the funds from rentals then will then be part of the township's account that they will use to offset the costs of repairs, hydro, maintenance, whatever else is involved in utilities. But the halls then will be fundraising for special events. But up until that happens, we're suggesting that it don't be grandfathered, that the hall boards all keep the money that they have. Because you can't say some is from rentals, some is from this, because a lot of it was just put into the same pot, and some of it still got there because the halls took on, whether it was donations of stoves or whatever, they took on these things to offset the cost of operating the hall. And you can't separate it, and it doesn't matter how hard staff try, they're not going to get it right, not because they're not capable, because the accounting wasn't maybe done the way it should have been in the past. So going forward, we have to start with a new slate. The halls keep the money they have now. Going forward, there'll be two. There'll be fundraising and there'll be rentals. That's what I'm hoping this council can see and adopt.
Councillor Coghlan and then Deputy Mayor Allen.
Thank you, Mayor French, and I do agree with Councillor Hanna, but what I'm hearing from you is I guess I'm not reading this correctly. The concern I have with that is that now the municipality has taken over or is starting to take over the cleaning services, the snow removal and things like that. So those services, like, I have no problem with the hall boards keeping it. It's just as a municipality, if the Elmvale Hall is actively used every day and we're sending a cleaner out there and they have to do the ice and everything, but then the hall board gets that money, but there's no money to the municipality to offset it. Is that what I'm understanding?
I think everybody here is jumping to a policy that's not even written. So that's what I'm saying, is nobody has a clear understanding. So when my residents come to me and say, where's the money going to go? I have nothing to say. We have assumptions. Yeah, we'll use the rentals and that money should go, but it hasn't been written. So yeah, we can jump to this. This is coming next week, like the deputy mayor said. So all I'm saying is up to date. If staff goes at it and they have a policy next week, then we'll probably vote on a policy and we all understand it. But I'm saying until that policy's written, keep that money, and that's grandfathered. That money stays with that hall because there was no procedure. There was no process. We're going to have a process very shortly. And then we'll start to work, we don't know it, Perry, that's the thing. So staff will bring us a recommendation telling us how it will go, and I can talk to my residents and and we'll probably have to sit down with each hall board and show them the process and tell them how they have to put their funding. If you're putting signs up and that, well, maybe you need a different count for that, and maybe you need a count. So, but nobody understands that now, and everybody was doing it all differently before. So let's just keep that mess. That's your money, And yeah, we're changing things, and we're going to change things. And this report's it should be done very shortly. I don't think 2018. I didn't say that it would be 2018. I said that when a policy will be written before, but if staff feels it won't be till 2018, that's too bad, but it could come next week. I don't mind that.
Deputy Mayor Allen?
Thank you, Mayor French. I repeat my question before then to CAO Brindley and Director Belcourt. Is there anything in this motion that is not currently being practiced and/or underway with respect to the upcoming report for next council meeting and bylaws being proposed?
CEO Brindley.
Thank you, Mayor French, and through to the Deputy Mayor. The only thing I'm a little confused is the first paragraph versus the last paragraph and whether there's duplication. Are we saying in the first one is that all funding in the community halls remain status quo for the time being? That the 2018 policy then be set funding? And then this is the comfort clause that I think council is looking for, some members, is that any funding raised prior to the adoption of the fundraising raised prior is grandfathered. I'm just concerned about the first one I read. I'm seeing some duplication between the first and the last. But I think what maybe Councilor McConkey is saying is that let's just stay status quo right now with the way it's funded, which is, the rentals right now go in and things like that. I'm seeing a little duplication. Maybe I can get some clarification here.
I guess the first sentence should say that all funding, meaning rentals, any funding within the account, be directed towards the community halls where the money was raised. And you probably don't need the sentence raised because funding, and you're right. And then the last sentence, that any funding raised prior to the adoption of such a policy will be grandfathered to the community halls. So when I say raised, I mean raised through rentals, I mean raised through fundraising, I mean everything. So I'm saying all of that money stays status quo and will remain with them. We're not going to go and take that money from them to pay for something else.
Councillor Ritchie, or CEO Brindley first?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. This is where I have some concerns, is that as we move forward, it's my understanding the rental money goes within to help us maintain the facilities. Any of the fundraising money, anything done that by the local hall boards to do any fundraising goes into a special account that's reserved just for them. But it's my understanding that as we move forward, it's actually those rentals will help us maintain those facilities.
And does rentals mean ice rentals? So we have teams out there shoveling right now and that. How does that work?
Well, historically, I can tell you, if it wasn't designated to a capital project, it went to general operating. And so I think that's clear. So I'm not sure, like all funding, because basically you can't all of a sudden take all the revenues now for the rest of the year and not contribute to the operation of that hall. You can't take all the revenues if they're rentals and that.
Okay, so will the funding be used towards that hall if there's funding within that hall, or can somebody answer me, if there's funding with a hall that has an excess amount and there's a funding in a hall that doesn't have an amount, will that funding from that hall be used to pay off operations on another hall? That is the concern of the residents. And so until they see a policy with that, because they are donating, sponsoring their money, thinking that that is going towards the hall. I don't mind if you want to change it in the future, but please make the rules known. That's all I'm asking. And, you talk about, yes, we assume that the rental money is going, but we didn't have a policy. So it's at an assumption level right now.
Councillor Hanna?
Thank you, and I'll try to be short. All I'm suggesting is that all the money that each hall has currently now, they keep it. Going forward, the rental money will go to the township to pay off expenses, going forward, any money the hall raises will go for for special events. And as Councillor Coghlan pointed out, there's snow plowing and so on. Some of the halls were paying their cleaners like $22 an hour. The lady in Midhurst, she was doing it for $15 an hour because she was sort of donating some of her time and effort to help keep the hall going, and she worked very hard to get extra rentals and so on. So the bottom line is, what exists today in each hall's fund, they keep it. Going forward, rental of the hall goes to the township. Funds raised through special projects, sponsorships, donations, stay with the hall.
But the policy always has been, all revenues, except for specifically identified capital projects, always went to the township. Always.
Well, Mayor, it's how it went into the bank account, if you like. And again, as I say, some of those funds went in at different amounts because there was money paid at different ratios for cleaning, if you like, volunteers doing painting. All the cleaners didn't get paid the same amount. There's all kinds of issues. And so without a clear policy, simple, we let each hall keep the money they have until the new policy comes forward next week or tomorrow. They keep the money they have in their account today. Going forward, rental money goes to the township. Money raised from fundraising stays with the community. Simple, and that's how we should do it. To do it any otherwise, I don't think is reasonable, fair, and I think it's going to cause a lot of hard feelings with all the volunteers and people that have done all the work and sponsorships over the years, and I won't speak to it again.
Councillor Ritchie, did you have a comment? Okay. I'll go to Councillor Austin.
I think Councillor Hanna has nailed it. As far as I'm concerned, we don't need to discuss it anymore. He has stated it clearly and concisely, and we're going to get a report from the township. But you know, if the motion that we were voting on today were exactly the same as Councillor Hanna presented it, I think I would support it for sure.
Can we amend this motion to repeat what Councillor Hanna said then? Because I absolutely support what he said, but this doesn't, like, there's, in
CEO
2018.
Brindley?
Thank you. Councillor Colligan, that's my challenge now, is I was hearing different things from different councillors on what this resolution meant. Everything from whether or not the rentals went in or not, and also at the same time, at the end of the day, our hope is that the actual money that the municipality does for essentially upgrades to the facilities or maintain the facilities more pooled, because one hall might need more money one year than the next money. And then what I'm hearing is no, whatever was given to us in the past has to go in the future. And unfortunately, the way this is written now, I'm very confused, but mind you, Councillor Hanna has some wisdom. So
I had nothing to talk about in the future in this motion. I was just talking about the past. And so I'm just saying that any past money stays with them. In the future, you have a policy, and that's how it will be handled. And Councillor Hanna's saying, you know, the rental will be pooled. I haven't even seen a policy on that, but I'm more of a process person. I like to see it in writing. But I'm talking about the past money, how you do it in the future, but everybody wants their money that they have in their account now.
CEO Brindley.
thank you, Mayor. The challenge is when I read that last paragraph, that any funding raised prior to the adoption of such policy will be grandfathered to the community halls who raised the funding. This doesn't say problem is when I'm hearing funding raised, I'm not seeing fundraising. And when I'm hearing this, once again, this is saying whatever monies goes to each hall, period.
Yes.
But that's not the intent when we've done this policy, because it will change.
It will change once you do your policy.
But this is saying grandfathered, though. The policy here at the last paragraph says, in the future, everything will be grandfathered, and the problem.
Okay, may I explain with that any funding raised prior to the adoption of such policy, so we do not have a policy today. It hasn't been written. You're saying it's coming in a couple weeks. So any funding, I mean hall rentals, I mean everything, be grandfathered, meaning to the community halls who raised that funding, whether it be hall rentals or anything. I don't see what the gap is.
Well, no, okay, but I'll go back to the point. Typically, the rentals and that have contributed toward the ongoing operating of it, and you're saying, we want to keep all the money, even though there might be, but even though there may be bills coming in for that time period, the township is going to take on that liability.
Okay, I can add into that excluding the cost of operation within that hall, but they don't want to pay for the other hall at this point.
And CEO Brindley.
I'm not trying to confuse things. The term grandfathered means forever in the future, like if you have a grandfathered bylaw. So although I see Councilor McConkey saying, well, this is until we have the policy, but the word grandfathered means forever. So whatever happened in the past is forever in the future, and that's my challenge.
No, I was saying grandfather, that money was granted.
Yes, Councillor Coghlan.
Thank you, Mayor French. I think that everybody at this table wants that to continue and continue to support the hall boards. My concern with doing any motion or anything, knowing that it's coming next week, can we not ask for staff to prepare something that the director of finance is comfortable with, that the director of Parks and Recreation and Properties is comfortable with, and that we can, because like I said, what Councillor Hannah said, I support, but I cannot support this resolution. It says that in 2018, well, that's a long time, well, not really, but there's a lot of time that goes between now and then. So if it's that, as of Wednesday, September 20th, the amounts in the bank accounts of each individual hall board remains with that hall board, I don't have a problem with that, but it's moving forward, there's going to be a cost to the municipality for cleaning and for, like we said, the ongoing or the operations. So I don't think grandfathering it is an option.
So if I leave the first sentence, that all funding in community halls be directed towards the community halls where the money was raised, so that incorporates rentals and everything. We took out the second sentence, and then we leave that in that until a policy will be, a policy is written on how funding from rentals fundraising will be handled, the policy must, that doesn't make sense now. No, I have to change that third sentence.
Through you, Mayor French, to Councillor McConkey, are you comfortable with, we've defeated a referral, but are you comfortable with a deferral and we can have this done? I mean, nothing's going to change. Bank accounts aren't going to be drawn. I mean, we can sit here and figure it out, or we can have staff draft it.
I think Council Hannah's preparing a motion, an amended motion to this.
Councillor McConkey, actually, obviously, because I think you want to keep the motion intact, and if we have a report at the next meeting, so to keep it intact, if you did defer it, the motion stays intact. And we could defer it to the next meeting as it is, and then when the report comes out, maybe it's not necessary or needed.
No, I think the motion, I will amend the motion tonight and vote on it.
Okay, we need, whatever the amendment is, we'll need a mover and a second for the amendment. We need a vote on that, and then we'll go back to the...
My question, through you, Mayor French, to Clerk Renee, and it's, I'm not trying to cause, but when you amend a motion and the intent of the motion is changed, it's no longer the same motion. So if we take out the policies, the years, the time, and the funding, in my opinion, respectfully, this motion would be then defeated.
I'll go to the clerk, but I think as for clarification, and I think the intent is not changing, but Clerk Chaperone?
Yes, if the intent changes, then that you cannot use that as an amendment if it changes the intent of the main motion.
If you think that the year is an intent, I honestly, in my first one, I didn't have the year, and I compliment the clerk for putting the year in, but grandfathered, I had the wrong definition of grandfathered, so I don't believe that the intent is changing. So I'll write it and you can tell me afterwards, but.
Deputy Mayor Allen.
Thank you, Mayor French. I repeat the question, CAO Brindley and Director Belcourt. Is anything in this not being presently done? I mean, I think there's a concern that until the report comes forward, the policies are set, that something nefarious, unfair is going to happen. But the current rules are such that individual accounting by each hall is done. The rental revenues are separated from the revenues from events that are volunteer driven, and those are known separately. The rental revenues are used for operations. The events are kept aside and not used for operations. So again, question, what's the purpose, or what's the crashing rush to get this altered in whatever fashion to get passed tonight when we're right at the cusp of dealing with a report and policy bylaws that are going to tie the bow around all this stuff?
CEO Brindley?
Mayor French, through the Deputy Mayor, currently these are standard practices of what's happening today.
Councilor McConkey?
Okay, I guess for my clarification then, if my hall board has money in fundraising and they also have money in hall rental, do I assume that until a policy is written, that that money will maintain and that it will only be used for the operation of my hall and not of another? Because I'm hearing different things tonight, and I wanted to know if I'm sitting at a $6,000 balance right now, that I'm going to start with that until any policy goes forward, and that $6,000 is not going to be moved or transferred to the operation of another hall.
And Director Belcourt, can you correct me? My understanding was, unless it's changed, at the end of each year, the counts were simply zeroed out and started over again.
Thank you, Your Worship. To answer your question, at the end of the year, if there was any surplus or deficit, it was carried forward as an opening balance for the upcoming year. The current practice is, and has been for several years, is that any fundraising events, when the individuals brought the money back in, they directed which accounts they went to. So that, if there were specific accounts, for example, if it was Midhurst, if it was to go to the pavilion account, it was to go there. And that was generally directed by whoever brought the funding in. Grenfell is a good example. When Stan Mattis was on the board, he would come in, he'd have funds for ice rentals, so that went into that account. This went into a pavilion account. This went into another account. And all the rentals, we've been doing all the rentals for all the buildings now since, I believe, is April or May. So all the rentals go specifically into a rental account. They don't get, and none of the fundraising funds go into rental accounts. And I know you're referring to what I would call all sources of revenue is what you're saying there by funding. But bear in mind, some of that funding over the years has been the grants from the municipality. And it varied depending on the facility too as to how much that grant was. So I think that's one of the things Director Schmidt wanted to do, was go through each hall board's account year by year, determine what were rentals, what were fundraising activities, because some of them have been skewed over the years, and we can pull it out, by who, the sublines in there, because it will say, it'll have a payment person. So we'll know whether or not it was a booking or if it was an event of some sort. And I think he wanted to do that in-depth detail research so that we could come back and give a real accurate picture of the status of each of the hall boards. Some are going to be in good shape, and some are not going to be in good shape. So at this point, all revenues still are staying with the boards. Nothing has changed. And as we bring back the policy, then we'll get direction as to how those funds are to be dispersed. And until that happens, they still stay status quo with each of the community centers.
Okay, Councilor Hanna.
Thank you. And in fairness to Mr. Belcourt, I'm partly to blame for where some of the money got directed at the Midhurst Hall, because when the pavilion funds were being raised, there wasn't a lot of confidence that the previous council was going to approve a pavilion. So rather than create a pavilion account early at that time, I suggested that if you do that, the pavilion doesn't go forward, the hall may not have the funds, so just put it all into the Midhurst Hall Fund. And the response that did come back, and again, no criticism of finance staff, they're all excellent, 100%. There was a suggestion that that would be fine because it was up to the hall, whatever you want to do with the funds, you can move it around and do whatever you want with it. So I maybe jeopardized some of the hall board funds for Midhurst that would have gone into the pavilion account. I also spent considerable time there several years ago doing a lot of electrical work in the hall board, and I probably shouldn't say that because I'm not a licensed electrician, so I believe it was inspected when it was done, and I know the painting had been done by people on a number of occasions, along with a lot of other things that take place in the halls. And that what I'm saying is that those funds would have come out of the rental income and paid for those things had myself and others not stepped up and done stuff. So to take the money now that's in the total hall fund and say that's from rentals, as your suggestion, that's to pay the bills, I believe that the funds should stay where they are. If there's existing bills that need to be paid and the money's there from rentals, then pay those bills. But other than that, leave the money with the halls, and I'm hoping that's what Councillor McConkey is able to draft. Now I have to excuse myself because I have a health problem and I need to go leave the.
Okay, actually, just hold for 30 seconds, maybe for clarity on this, and it might help it along. So basically what you are saying, and I'll go back to the example Director Belcourt gave, at the end of the year, if there was a surplus, it stayed in the balance. And if there was a deficit, it stayed there, and just if they kept having deficits, they simply accumulated. And so what I think the desire is for that surplus to stay as money available to the hall. Is that what you're trying to do?
Mayor French, I'll wait for Councillor McConkey to return. However, I would like to move for a deferral. I know we've already spoke to this, but a deferral can be put on the floor. I'm looking forward to the report from Director Schmidt. I would like to have more information from Director Belcourt, and I think that we are all on the same page. We all have a connection with our hall boards, and I don't think that anybody on this table is going to want to see anything taken away from anyone when we know how much time and energy goes into creating what we do for our communities. So I think that the intention is wonderful. I think that it is something that is going to provide a lot of clarity to our residents. However, I do think that we will have our answers in 2 weeks and nothing is going to change between now and then.
Okay, so a deferral takes precedence. So do I have a second there? Austin. Any questions on the deferral? Councillor McConkey.
I know Councillor Coghlan said that we all seem to be on the same page. I just know that tonight it's been stated a couple times where the rentals go towards they go into one pot. And this motion does not speak to it going to one pot. So it speaks to it going in, like it doesn't even speak about that. It's saying like there's a cutoff date and we don't move into going into the one pot until a certain time frame. So when we get this information, staff's going to probably do a recommendation saying that it will all, rentals will go to one pot and we'll pay something. We still have to, in good faith, I'm willing to move forward with the deferral if in good faith that we are agreeing that we didn't have a policy, so any funds remain with the halls, and then it's going forward. So I'm satisfied if the good faith is that, and we'll get the information then.
Yeah, no, and I just want to clarify, and the clerk can defer. A deferral simply means the motion is still alive. We're just not going to deal with it tonight. We're going to deal with it the next meeting. And quite honestly, if for some reason the report comes back and a recommendation that clarifies everything that you're supportive, you may want to withdraw it at that point. But right now, it would be dealt with at the next meeting. So Any discussion on the deferral? Deputy Mayor Allen.
Did we add the date deferred to October 4th?
Clerk Chaperone?
For a deferral, it's automatically to the next meeting.
Okay, with that in mind, I have a motion to defer, moved by Coghlan, second by Austin. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Good discussion. I like transparency, that's why. Okay, now our next motion is moved by McConkey, and I'll need a seconder. Whereas Grenfell is a vibrant rural community with a mix of residential and farming operations, and whereas concerns have been brought forward from residents regarding speeding issues within the community, be it therefore resolved that the Township of Springwater requests the County of Simcoe permanently reduce the speed limit to 60 kilometers per hour on a portion of Sunnydale Road from County Road 90 to 100 meters east of Grenfell Road in the community of Grenfell. Open for, I need a seconder. Hannah. Okay, discussion, comments, questions. Councillor Austin.
I'm just wondering if we, without some clear evidence backing the need for this, all it says is concerns have been brought forward from the residents regarding speeding issues, because I know the previous council lowered the speed limit on Seaton Road, and then it kind of backfired. And other residents said we want the speed limit increased again. So I'm just wondering if there's enough evidence on which to base a decision on this one. Do we have a lot of data?
I'll let Councillor McConkey maybe, okay, Councillor Colligan, do I have a question, or can I, maybe Councillor McConkey might be the best one to respond to this request, because she knows some of the history, and I think there was some question about do we know if this is necessary, so maybe I'll allow Councillor McConkey to comment, because I have some comments, because I live there too.
The speed, it's funny on this, like they do have a notice speed as 60, but it's not enforceable. So on the one part of it, but we want the 60 to come through because it's a community. And I will say there's been a death there. There was an accident just on Monday as this resolution came forward. I've had pretty well every resident on that road come to me with it, and they will come forward with a petition from that road before it goes to the county. There's many accidents. I think we could get also reports from the fire department. We've had them in the past come forward. It's just, we've dealt with the county through their traffic, and it's not going anywhere. So it just comes to a point sometimes when, same as here, sometimes our policies are written in such a way that staff do not have a flexibility. But the council has a flexibility when they understand the accidents that are happening, when they understand that this has been a community there for over 100 years, and it's our only community there. So and we have farming activity, and it's just getting worse. And it's the farmers that are really chewing, and they're starting to chew the mayor's ear more than mine now. So I'll let Mayor French speak if he has to.
I'll comment at the end. Councillor Coghlan.
Thank you, Mayor French. And I think too that this, having an avenue between us and the county with so many county roads and residents of Springwater living on those county roads, we often have this disconnect between, yes, we've done what we can for our roads that we have control over, but there needs to be something put in place because, you know, even yesterday there was a couple that came in to speak to the Dalston area, and it's just, I support this because all we're doing is asking the county to permanently reduce it. They're going to do the work. They're going to look for the detail. They're the ones that are going to find whether or not that's something they can support. So, I mean, I have no problem supporting this recommendation.
And actually, I'll make a comment. That section of road the topography drops dramatically when you're approaching from traveling west when you get to the crown of the hill where this 100 meters, you don't realize there's two hairpin curves coming up. And people have missed them quite frequently. They usually are able to catch the first one, but then they end up in one of the neighbors' ditches. The county has rolled a snowplow over. There's been a bus go through the graveyard fence. And I think since we've been, I think there was 2 fatalities. And it's a dangerous section of road, and the visibility is quite bad. And actually, the improvement, I was surprised because I went down and did a U-turn yesterday at the Grenfell Halt. I thought visibility would be better with the improved road. It's actually worse because the curve comes around, and you want to make sure you get out there very quickly. And the reason Councillor McConkey and I traveled with the county people, and they saw our concerns, we thought they actually might do something, because what we suggested for almost 2 years, it was regulated to 60 kilometers an hour because of construction. And our suggestion was, since they're getting used to driving 60, why don't we just make it a permanent? But now that they've removed all the construction signs, they went back to 80. And and it's a problem area. So I'm definitely going to support the resolution. Any more comments on it? Councillor McConkey?
Since it has been out there, the residents are also saying that they want, and I can do another resolution next time, but basically if you're speaking to it at the county, they also want the guardrail on the south end. Yeah, the guardrail. And then because the bus it was a bus that almost got hit, and I think a bus has almost got hit twice, there's nothing to mark a school bus pickup. And I don't know if that's the county that looks, I think it is, because I think I had to deal with one before, that it is the county that will put that sign that says a school bus pickup. So those were 2 things by me putting this out through the social media that I got back, especially after the accident on Monday. So.
Okay, no further discussion. All those in favor? Carry unanimously. So do we have any notices of motion? Councillor Coghlan.
Apologies, Councillor Ritchie, I have 3. Don't worry, I'm not talking about them tonight, though. So notice of motion number 1 is that I'm going to be bringing forward a notice of motion to have Hospice Simcoe considered as a recipient for a portion of the Mayor's Golf Tournament funding. Number 2 is that a report come back to council on the committees and the boards of council and the terms of reference of them. I know we had discussion at our meeting about the comprising, how these boards are comprised, how many people sit on them, if that's what this council wants to continue with for the next one. And the third one is that a report come forward to council on reserve accounts in the PIT, what correspondence on the PIT. It spoke to a working fund reserve, and that was the first time I learned about a working fund reserve, and understanding now that it's just similar to a tax stabilization reserve. I would like to know how many reserves we have, what's in the reserves, why we have these reserves, what the terms are of those reserves, so that as we move forward with our budget proceeding, we have a really good idea. It was shocking to me that at this point I learned that there was a reserve I didn't know about, and that's all until items for future consideration.
Councillor Austin?
Just a question to Councillor Coghlan. When you
No,
say
we can't discuss it. It's a notice.
it has to do with the wording of her first motion?
She hasn't provided the wording. She just you don't have to actually do the wording. You just have to say, I'm going to table a motion regarding whatever.
I just want to know if it's Hospice Fiona and Barrie, or Hospice, which one is it, the Barrie one or the Midland one?
That will come forward in the report, and it is the Barrie one.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Allen?
So clarification, the wording will be in next council meeting, and then it'll be voted on the following council meeting?
No, this is the notice of a motion coming. It doesn't have to Clerk Chaperone?
Yes, so this is the notice. The wording and the motion will be listed on the next agenda.
and reports pertaining to those will be,
There are generally no reports regarding a notice of motion. So if the notice of motion is requesting a report, the
Right.
motion needs to be voted on prior to the report.
Okay. Any other notices of motion? Items for future consideration? Counselor Coghlan.
Thank you, Mayor French. This item for future consideration pertains to an issue that happened in our ward around Gill Road. There's issues with debris and food and feeding animals, and I know that our bylaw have been working diligently to what we can, but it is, like Councilor Ritchie has said, attracting more wildlife to your, anyway, that's where the bear sighting was today, and it was an ongoing issue. So knowing that there are farms in that area, I would like to figure out how the 1-800 M&R number is not working for these residents, and we need to figure out a solution. I mean, running around and knocking on doors to let them know to not go out for a walk and not let their pets outside is not, to me, and it's only going to get worse. So I would like to continue to work on figure out how we can help residents in this situation.
Okay. Other items? Is that it?
I keep going.
Any other items of future consideration from anyone? Okay. So we need to move on to the bylaws. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Austin and Allen? That the bylaws listed herein be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. All those in favor? Carried. Confirmatory, can I have a mover and a seconder? Hannah and Coghlan. That bylaw 2017-069 to confirm and adopt the proceedings of council at the regular meeting held on September 20, 2017, listed here and be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. All those in favor? Carried. And can I have a mover and a second for the adjournment? Austin and Ritchie. That the regular meeting of the Township of Springwater is now adjourned at 9:07 PM to meet again in regular meeting on October 4th, 2017 at 6:30 PM in the Council Chambers Administrative Center, Minnesing. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, everyone, for joining us in this exciting meeting and lots of good discussion.